Hey everyone, David here from the Five and Dime, and this is the full tutorial on this beautiful antique walnut sideboard. And this is the before. This is what we started out with, a dark and scratched up, very old and dated looking piece of furniture with a lucky penny found inside. So we're going to start it off as we do with any project, and we're going to give it a really good clean with Dixie Belle's White Lightning. And then it'll get a rinse with clean water to ensure that we have a surface that is free of debris and grease so that we can move on. After getting everything cleaned, I saw these waxy build-up spots on top, and I thought, okay, this is definitely going to be one that I'm going to have to use some mineral spirits or paint thinner to get it cleaned off of, or else I'm definitely going to have an issue with wax and causing adhesion issues, etc., etc., etc. So at this point, I didn't really know what the plan was. So using 4-0 steel wool and paint thinner, gave that a go to remove the wax and used a scraper. It was filled with this wax. Once I had all the wax scraped off, I gave it another clean with Dixie Belle's White Lightning and another rinse of clean water. The surface had a lot of scratches and gouges in it, and so at this point, unsure of what the plan was 100%. I just wanted to sand it back just to see what it would look like, and I was really happy that I did. But this did start a sanding journey that took days to complete. So sanding everything back to reveal the natural wood below, and I'm so happy that I did do it. It was at this point that I realized the piece of solid walnut and there was no veneer whatsoever on this piece. So to pay tribute to its age, history, and the beautiful grain, it was getting a sand back to raw wood. So I sprayed it down and took a look and I was like, yep, I'm going to dig this. I really like it. So some embellishments needed to be removed because I just thought they were old and dated and didn't really look well. So removed those, filled them with Dixie Belle mud. Then it was time to remove all of the handles and the hinges, etc. Put them all in a Ziploc baggie, which is a great tip because that way everything's all together. And keep the screwdriver that you use to do this because then everything is in one place when you go to put it all back together. Sanding the two doors for the front of this sideboard, I wanted to, again, bring it all down to raw wood, but the only thing that was bothering me was these routed out ornamentations that were in the front of it. I don't understand it, but okay. So I had to come up with a plan to fix that as well. And more sanding again. Yep, lots and lots of sanding, but happy with the end result. Most sanding I've ever done on a project. So then I had the door fronts to contend with and those little routed areas. This is a little inset channel for decorative purposes that's on there. I don't like it, so I decided I'm going to fill it in. So I used Dixie Belle mud in the color brown, and I'm using a rubber spatula to push it really into it, and I'm overfilling so that I can have the smoothest possible finish. So pushing that in, and then I'm going to let that dry. Let that dry overnight, and then taking my sander, I sanded back all of the excess mud and then proceeded to get the backs all done too because I realized I hadn't sanded the backs of the doors as well and I want everything to be beautiful and pristine. So got that done. Now, key note to understand here is that Dixie Belle mud is a water-based product that will reactivate with water. So you need to make sure that you seal it before you go to any next steps as far as painting or sealing. I like to use easy peasy spray wax on that area because I find that it is the best thing because you don't move the mud at all. So you're going to spray that on, wipe back any excess lightly, and then you're going to let that dry. The dry time on that is 30 minutes and it cures in 6 hours. And yes, you can paint over Dixie Belle mud when it has a spray wax on it. It is water-based. Next part of this journey was to camouflage that front and to make it more attractive. I decided I am going to add one of the transfers and I'm going to use the Magnolia Gardens transfer by Dixie Belle Paint Company from the Bells and Whistle line. The outer channel will work as my frame for the transfer. And so I've just created a template by using a couple pieces of printer paper and laid them down, created a template, and then I'll use that to lay on top of my transfer so I know exactly the size that well, roughly exactly the size that I need to cut my transfer so that it fits properly in the space that I want to put it. Using the template, I traced that on top of the transfer so I knew exactly where I need to cut it out, and then followed the regular directions that you would, which is to remove the backer on it, place it down, and then burnish it in place. And this was a little tricky because I had to be exact. So when you're putting it down, just be very gentle when you lay it down the first time to make sure you have it in the right spot. This way, if you need to lift it, you can do so without damaging the transfer itself. Burnish away, remove the top piece, and then it'll get sealed with Dixie Belle's clear coat. I used the clear plastic from the top of the previous transfer to use as a guide to cut out my next piece because I needed them to be exactly the same. So obviously using the clear piece, I was able to see underneath to make sure I placed it in the right spot. And again, following the exact same process, cut it out, laid it down, burnished it, and then sealed it with the Dixie Belle clear coat. And I did use a satin clear coat to seal these. I think they turned out pretty well. Are they identical? No. Are they close enough to being identical? Yes, they are. I used Dixie Belle's clear coat in satin to seal the entire piece. I wanted a very natural look, and I didn't want it something that had to be, a repeat application after so much time, etc. It was suggested to use wax. It was suggested to use How Do You Do hemp oil, which would both have been given a beautiful finish. However, I decided to seal it in order to give it the most long-lasting seal. Once I had everything dry, it was time to add my Would You Bend embellishments, but I needed to match up the Would You Bend. As you can tell, the Would You Bend is a different color from the wood, and I wanted again for it to have as natural and as close a look as possible. So I went through the Walnut No Pain Gel Stain, and I tried the Georgian Cherry, and I tried the American Honey. I found that the combination of the walnut with a little bit of the Georgian Cherry layered over top of it gave it as close as I could possibly get it. So that's what I used for this part of it, and then I'm going to apply that, let that dry, and I do suggest wearing gloves because it is an oil-based product and it stains your hands. Well, there you go. Lesson learned. I applied the walnut first, then I layered on top the Georgian Cherry, and then I wiped it back so that it would be a little more subtle. Here I'm trying another method. I'm using the Voodoo Gel Stain, which is a water-based product. And I started off with the Au Naturel. And then I layered that and mixed it with a little bit of the Up in Smoke, which is a gray. So just seeing if this was going to give the desired look that I was looking for as well. Not to worry, all of the Would You Bend is going to be getting a coat of the Walnut No Paint Gel Stain as well. Again, just to see if we can mimic the wood as much as possible. I'm never going to get an exact match. I'm just not good at that part of it. However, this will work quite well, and then it'll have a layer of gilding wax on top of it. Now that it's completely dry, it's time to apply it. So this is the WUB1366, which is part of the pack of 2 pediments. And as you can see, there's a little routed part in that little back ledge thing that goes on the back of the board. So I'm going to mask that. Would You Bend is easy to apply, so you're going to heat up your piece. You're going to apply glue to the back of it, making sure you get full coverage, and then you're going to press it in place. Heat it up again. Ensure you've got full contact by pressing it down well, and then remove any of the excess glue. The cupboards on the outside of this were in really bad shape as far as they were just scratched up, and they're dark and dingy. I sanded the back, I cleaned them with white lightning, and I decided I'm going to paint them out because there is nothing worse when you're trying to find something in a cabinet, and if it's a dark cabinet, you can't see what's in there properly. I'm taping off any of the areas that I want left natural to ensure I don't get any paint on them. And then I'm coming in with the color Oyster, which is from the Silk Mineral Paint line. And this I'm going to give 2 complete coats to make sure I have full coverage. And the great thing is it has the built-in primer, built-in top coat. Once I've got it done, and if I'm happy with the coverage, it's finished. The hardware itself is in absolutely amazing condition. I gave it a good clean and polished it up, and it looks fantastic. But the hinges for the doors and that were in more of a rusty looking state. So I sanded each of them down, and then I'm using gilding wax in the color gold because it mimics the hardware. And I am giving it a coat of that, and I'm going to let it dry. Then I'll buff away any excess before I put the hardware or put the hinges back on the doors, etc. This is where the fun begins, because now I'm starting to get to a point where I'm actually starting to put everything back together and being able to show a completed project. So put all the hinges on, made sure that they were nice and tight, and now I'm going to start putting everything back together with starting with the doors. And look how nice and beautiful the inside of that cabinet is now. Clean, fresh, and bright. Putting the hardware back on, super simple. And I debated about what I was going to do with this center panel with the 2 drawers. And I decided I left it natural. And I think the hardware on there is all that it really needs. I'm adding some gilding wax onto the piece that I put on the back, which is the WB1366. And you'll notice I did put a microfiber cloth down because I wanted to make sure that I didn't get any gilding wax on the surface where I don't want it. However, if you seal your piece before you start doing your gilding wax, you can actually remove the gilding wax with a baby wipe. To mask those little rosettes that were on the bottom that are routed out, I am using the Pack of 5 Classic Multi-Petal Flower from Would You Bend. And again, following the same process, I'm going to heat it up. I'm going to apply glue, press it in place, heat it up again, and press it and remove excess glue. So this one was definitely a little bit more tricky. I had actually dropped this piece. So this is one of the Would You Bend pediments, and this is the one WUB1364, which is quite large. And I dropped it. So it's in 4 pieces. But here's the great thing about Would You Bend. If you break it, you can just glue it back up. That's the great thing about this product, is that it is heatable, bendable, and when you heat it up and put it all together, you won't even notice that it's there. Trying yet again another process in order to see if I can match it up to the wood as much as possible. I'm using the colors Pine Cone and Chocolate from the Chalk Mineral Paint line, and then I applied gold gilding wax over top of it. Didn't turn out as close as I'd hoped, but I really like the accent of it. So I'm now going to apply this, and I want to make sure it's centered. And of course, I forgot my measuring tape, so I just took a piece of painter's tape and figured out where the center was. And again, this one was trickier because I had 4 pieces of Would You Bend that create 1 piece. And again, this is the WUB1364 pack of 2 pediments. And you can see it's quite a large piece. So I needed to heat it up, glue it in place, press it together, and I put a little joint, a little glue in the joint where the 2 pieces were broke so that it would sit properly. So got that applied and heated it all up and removed the excess glue. And I think it actually worked out pretty good because you can't even tell now where it was broken. The last thing to do on this was to add some casters. And this was a bit tricky because I had to remove the old, hole thingies that hold the casters in place. But once I got it done, I was really happy with the end result because the ones that I chose have an antique finish, but they are rubber casters, so they're perfect for wooden floors. So here we go. Here is the reveal. It looks absolutely fantastic. So again, I used White Lightning, Oyster Silk Mineral Paint, Gator Hide, Magnolia Garden Transfer, Walnut and American Honey No Paint Gel Stain, Georgian Cherry No Paint Gel Stain, Voodoo Gel Stain and Au Naturel and Up in Smoke, Gold Gilding Wax, Big Mama's Butter, Best Dang Wax for all the drawers, as well as the Would You Bend's 1366, 1364, and 0355. Thanks so much for following along. Ciao.